Oh, slowly but surely, we're becoming a red operation. Most of our power tools are yellow, including our grease guns. But I've heard nothing but good things about these Milwaukee grease guns. So I figured, why not? We can check our first full service off the list for this field cultivator. I'm actually rather impressed about how much less physical maintenance is required versus our older ones. The rolling baskets are all sealed bearings, so obviously you don't have to grease those. The crazy wheels up front have a grease zerk, and the mainframe lift wheels all have a nylon ring or some kind of Palmer as a wear part as opposed to greasing them. Pretty minimal effort required. Now it is wider and has more shovels or sweeps on the front, so that's definitely a little more intensive. And this was not a brand new field cultivator, it was used. Needless to say, after running 600 or 700 acres through it, the sweeps that were already worn out when we got it were pretty much in desperate need of replacing. We got that done. Chris, Jeff, Dad are gonna set to this bin. I'm gonna move this over to the other shed to do some more work on it. With this 9620R getting close to 100 engine hours, it is fairly close to due to change the brake and oil out of it. Although we're 20 hours away, since it's raining, we got some time. It is on our list today. Having to unplug the grease zerks on your non-sealed bearings makes you appreciate the sealed bearings until you have to replace those. I was running behind her last night, and it seems to me that nothing's making a ridge. This rolling basket on this side isn't doing its job.
So it needs to go down?
This needs to go down, and I think that's full of mud because it's running too low.
Where's the nut?
Dad and I have done our best to address the problem on this. This corner was going in too deep. This one really wasn't going deep enough. Like I said in a previous video, this field cultivator has seen its better days. Overall though, it does a relatively good job. Nowhere near as good as the one that's on the 9620, the newer 2230 floating hitch field cultivator. That one's practically a Rolls Royce compared to this. If you ask me, every successful lunch break involves a good nap, which today was not a successful lunch break. So take that for what it's worth. But we're gonna drop the oil out of this tractor. I believe it holds 12 or 13 gallons of oil, so we'll need at least 3 buckets. 4 is going to make our lives a little bit easier. That ought to do it. I've located the oil switch, but I've yet to determine the easiest way to get to it that's not from the bottom. Oh, this thing's heavy. Oh. That's easier than I thought it'd be. At what point does a breeze become a wind? Is there a defining metric for that, or is it just when it starts to piss you off? It's not problematic yet, but if it was a little bit breezier, it would be a wind. I can tell you that right now. Yep, that's a wind. I don't know in particular exactly why you have break-in oil. I'm not an engine genius, if you guys couldn't tell at this point. If I had to speculate, and someone comment down below and give me the true reason, there's probably some impurities in the engine from manufacturing that you definitely want to get out within the first 100 hours, at least early on in the engine's life, to make sure it's not bouncing around the oil for eternity. On top of that, I'd imagine the break-in oil might be a different blend or maybe some different synthetics in there to help kind of coat, lubricate, and season the walls of the engine. I could be completely wrong. If I am, correct me, but that's my speculation on it. That's a big old engine. The 570 horsepower and 620 horsepower four-wheel drive tractors are the only engines that Deere outsources in their big tractor lineup right now. These are Cummins made. I believe it's like a 14.9 liter. It's a big block, big horse, and a lot of power. If you haven't gathered by now, we don't exactly have a fancy shop to work on. This barn here is probably the closest thing to a nice shop. It was originally an old corn crib, and now we store equipment in it and do work in it some, but it's not warm in the winter. Our main shop's outside, and unfortunately, someone left the sprinklers on last night, and the floor was all wet when I had to work and crawl around. And I gotta do some more of it here once this done, because the other field cultivator needs a few sweeps. A weak stream is easily influenced by outside forces.
Dump that in the oil.
Leak check. We'll leave this over at Katie's, that way it's out of the way. It's nice and out of the way here. One more maintenance project for the day and we'll probably be calling it quits. I'll throw a few new shoes on this. Got that finished up. I do a last minute scan to see if I left any used sweeps on the ground. That could be an expensive mistake if that gets in a tire. Out for my morning crop scouting tour, and I noticed something a little bit unusual right there. Kind of looks like a planter gauge wheel. I'm hoping that's not the case. This field's in pretty darn good condition after that rain. It's exactly what this cloddy, wet soil needed. That's an interesting place for that. Not exactly where it belongs. As much as I wish they were optional equipment, these are in fact necessary for your planter to run correctly. So we probably have one row that was a little bit wonky. If you have 1 out of 2, I'd say you're probably still somewhat safe because one will maintain depth pretty good, probably not pristine. And it looks like we can just put this back on. It's probably one my dad fastened. Where did you come from? Oh, quick find. Right there. Anything inherently wrong? No. Just came off. The Escape Artist gauge wheel has been replaced on the soybean planter. Unfortunately, it's been confined back to its original position. We've greased Dad's planter, so we're pretty much 60% of the way ready to hit the ground running. Soybean planter needs grease, which I will do. My aim when greasing is to always not get dirty, but unfortunately, as they say, the only way to not get dirty greasing things is just not to grease at all. It's a trivial effort to stay clean because grease gets everywhere. There's nothing you can do about it, even if you're an expert. For the sake of clarification and simplicity, I should probably explain to you 36 hours ago, prior to yesterday, that night, we had about a ½ inch of rain here at the farm, so 12 or 13 millimeters for you metric folk. Up to the north of here, just west of Mattoon, where we worked that ground on Sunday, so 2 or 3 days ago, I don't recall, they only had 0.2 of an inch of rain. What that means is more than likely, after a day of drying yesterday and another day of moderate drying today with 50 to 60 degree temperatures, sun shining, wind blowing, we probably will be able to both plant corn and plant beans. We're not going to get in too much of a hurry because I think another hour or two definitely would help the ground dry out and be in better condition. But we won't have everything ready to go. I'm speculating that we will be planting here soon. As of right now, the field that we're speculating that is going to plant here pretty soon for soybeans is going to be going into a different herbicide platform than the beans we finished up with a couple days ago. I took the liberty before finishing the other night of running the row units empty, but the tanks are still full of a different XtendFlex bean. We're going to be planting some Enlist beans, and not to go into the weeds here, but if you spray Enlist on an XtendFlex bean, it will kill them, and we will spray Enlist, so we want to make sure we get 99.9% of those XtendFlex beans out of the tank. It's probably been 5 or 6 years since we planted one single herbicide platform, so this isn't our first rodeo. We know what to do in advance to be prepared. That way we don't have a mess on our hands when we spray. There's a reason we're not in the seed handling business. We're not exactly immune to spills. And by we, I mostly mean Dad, because he dropped one of these bags. This is one of our fields west of town that we work that is going to be going into corn. From the road, looks pretty good. A little wet underneath.
Background's a little heavy underneath yet.
Looks pretty good though.
That's actually working up better. Yeah, it's a little heavy there.
Field cultivator's running is always a good sign. Seeing as the ground is as close to perfect as it's ever going to be, we're going to get our ducks in a row, get everything lined up, get some seed in the tender, plant some corn, then plant some beans. There's always something in the way. I can't be too upset though, because I am the one who parked that there. It actually might not be in the way. Guess we'll see. There's a lot of room, but I have to make a turn to come out. Should be okay. That answers that. Good thing I did such a good job parking that field cultivator that it wasn't in the way. Totally planned. Since our backhoe conveyor that we normally load the seed tenders with is tied up on a corn bin right now, and we're not going to use that much seed, we are going to go ahead and load this with the tender swing away feature. To make a quick note, treated seed does not belong in an elevator, neither does seed treatment. So when we switch from one to the other, we thoroughly wash out the conveyor. We don't want dirty corn going into the planters, and we don't want treated seed going to the elevator. That's a big no-no. So as opposed to cleaning it out right now, we're going to bridge the gap for today with the very convenient seed tender swing away function to load itself. A box of corn typically contains 40 or 45 units of corn. We plant about 35,000 seeds per acre on average, meaning that one box is good for about 2 1/4 acres. Every one of these boxes, if it's got 45, is worth about 100 acres of corn ground. That's why we prefer to use the conveyor, just to dump here and load that. We don't have to do all this monkey business. But today, that's how we're gonna get by. I am planning on planting quite a bit of beans today as well. The beans I'm planting though are are coming from Pioneer. I've shown our Pioneer dealers place multiple times. We've even driven by in this video. They will do us the favor of loading those beans into our seed tender right out of their treater. So we don't have to handle them at all and load them ourselves. We just pull up there, you'll load our tender, and then we'll take it to our planter and do the rest. It's actually rather convenient. The north 100 acres we're going to be farming is going into a Pioneer 1298 112-day double stack corn. The south field's about a short 50. We just picked it up this year, and also as part of the tornado damage. It is going to have 113-day Bex corn, 6374 double stack or double pro corn. I believe it's Bayer genetics, whereas Corteva Pioneers, Corteva genetics. That's pretty straightforward. I'm excited to plant some corn today on some of our better fields. And we treat these right, they may be 300 bushel corn. I guess I should shut this off. Come on. Shut, please. Oh, there we go. That's what happens when you forget. Headed north to plant some corn. There's dust flying up this way. Pretty confident in this corn we're putting in the ground. A little bit out of my element here. We got about 2,000 pounds on. Put about 950 on both of them and go from there. He's off to plant corn. We're gonna go get some beans in the tender. It does not get much more convenient than this right here, folks. Hello, open up. He's gotta do a little bit more legwork to get these beans out of these boxes into the treater. This is not a variety they keep in their bulk storage. Some of their extremely popular varieties that they sell a lot of, they keep outside in these big bulk bins and can bring them in on the conveyor and treat them. The other lesser used varieties they keep in these pro boxes and move them as needed. Needless to say, bulk storage is much more convenient, and that's where most of the units are coming from because those are their highest yielding and most convenient beans. It's hard to beat that service. The only thing better would have been if he just delivered them to the field for me. And he would have. I don't think we need to take advantage of him too much that early in the season though. We like to keep a truck with some seed by the corn planter in case he runs out. We're gonna do a little bit of shuffling around, some personnel switches here. I'm gonna go get the planter. Chris is gonna get this pickup truck and Katie's gonna help coordinate all of that.
Plant space, 100%.
Didn't get all of them. Through a combination of procrastination and other distractions, I've managed to not get the planter greased. Whether or not that was on purpose, that's for you to decide. That being said, it wasn't due to be greased. I was just being proactive and killing some time. Get it greased after we plant another couple hundred acres. How about that? I would venture to say that we're in a garden spot here in Mattoon. Not too little rain, not too much rain, especially compared to everyone else in the Corn Belt. We'll double check that all of our trap doors are shut so we don't lose any of our valuable soybean seed. And here comes Chris with the seed. We're like a well-oiled machine here that only squeaks a little bit. Keep coming. Whoa! I'm happy with how empty that is. Few beans aren't gonna hurt us. They'll die anyways. Right now we're loading up a Pioneer 35215E Enlist soybean. It's a 3.5, so a mid Group 3 soybean. Enlist tolerant. Enlist is a great herbicide platform, and Pioneer has always been known, in my opinion, to have good beans. We're pretty much ready to rock and roll after we unfold. Oh, I guess I need to fully unfold before I put it down. Ground's in good condition. Let's rock and roll. I don't know why I didn't make a GPS line for this end of the field. These are exactly the places where they're handy to have. The neighbor's planted his beans before us, but I can't exactly tell where he's planted. I don't want to leave too much of a gap just for the fact that that's a good place for weeds to grow. And I also don't want to plant too far over on them because I feel like that might be kind of disrespectful. Although we have a great relationship with these guys here in the south. This is much better. Steering's overrated anyways. It would be irresponsible of us not to do our due diligence here, check our seed depth. Always want to make sure the soybeans are in the moisture, getting good seed to soil contact, or at least as good as they can for the conditions. A little cloddy in spots. About an inch in the ground. The seedbed could definitely be in better condition than it is. If we get a rain here in the next week or so, like we did on the other farms, this will be perfect. Right at an inch in the ground. Perfect. I know that it's probably nearly impossible for you to see. That right there is Bruce, our Pioneers dealer place where we picked up our beans. And just to the left of him, or to the west, is where Dad's planting corn at. Probably just a tiny little speck, but that's where he is. I'm pretty happy with our progress here on this field. Ground could definitely be in a little bit better shape. Maybe not right now, but when we worked it a couple days ago. Either way though, I'm satisfied getting a crop in the ground. Late April, we still have quite a bit of yield potential. We're about 2/3 of the way done with this field, but Dad and I are gonna do a switcheroo. He's gonna come run the bean planter here. I'm gonna run the corn planter on the south farm over there that Katie and I are gonna be farming this year that we picked up. I don't know if he feels like one of us should run it because we're the ones farming it and give us the responsibility, or he just doesn't want to be the one who messes it up. Could be a combination of the two, I'm not sure, but we're gonna get a hop into the ExactEmerge planter and plant 40 acres, which should take about 30 minutes maybe. It just hasn't done it at all?
See, it's up there, but I can't go through the field, so what else do you do?
Well, no, but has it done it at all that you've been running?
Look, it's doing it right now.
Has it done it at all?
I don't know.
You'll know if it does that.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Well, you gotta do it if it say you gotta do it.
I don't have power, so what? I had to do this once before.
Your PTO off?
Yes. Do I just stop?
Don't mess with anything.
Okay. I'll go back and plant beans.
That's one heck of a note. I leave my planter to come run this one, and I get to sit here and supervise a parked exhaust filter cleaning. Saving the world, one tractor at a time. I don't know why it did not do the filter cleaning on its own. He said the tractor's been derated in power. If the exhaust filter does not get cleaned out, it will restrict the power pretty significantly, and we're trying to run this planter 10 miles an hour with a 310 horsepower tractor. We need about everything we can get. So who knows how long this will be. It is 4:17 right now. I'll update you when it's done. Actually, this is progressing faster than I thought it would. We've made 1/3 of the progress in 5 minutes. So I thought this would be like a 30-minute project. It may just be 15 minutes. Well, we do have a tiny bit of time on our hands waiting on that tractor to clean up the environment. we will talk a little bit about corn seed agronomics. Now, of course, we plant our corn seed much thinner. I mentioned earlier in the video, we're planting 35,000 plants per acre out here, which is a little less than a fifth of what we're planting our soybeans at, which also means that these plants or seeds in the ground are going to be spaced out much farther apart. So far that I can't even find one. Hello? Anyone home? So there's one right there. Our corn's sitting about 1.5 inches to 2 inches in the ground. I'm going to shorten this conversation up right now because I heard the track just spooled down a little bit, indicating that it quite possibly is done doing the filter cleaning. Corn needs a deeper start to its life. 1.5 inches to 2 inches is kind of that golden root zone or seed zone to start at. Soybeans struggle much more to break through the surface. That's a lot of the reason why you want them in that top 1 inch. Corn has more of a spiking ability, so being deeper is not a problem. And as a matter of fact, if you plant corn too shallow, those shallow roots will actually lead to significant yield loss. So you do need to have it at least 1.5 inches in the ground. I have seen on numerous occasions where farmers have messed up their depth with corn, and the result was a terrible stand. They ended up having to go out and tear out their corn and replant it. Turn back to work. Thank you, John Deere, the EPA, everyone else involved with this. All right, let's do this. Pretty similar to mine in a lot of ways. He just has the generator portion. Unfortunately, since the vacuums were turned off, I will have to re-prime the units. She's running. There, that's what we needed the horsepower for. Planter's performing decently. We're running 98.9 singulation, hitting 34.7 out of our 35,000 population goal. 100% good ride percentage, which is basically how well the units are staying on the ground. The hydraulic downforce is crucial to the success of a planter like this. This thing's a big girl. All the time I spend out in the gate or making guidance lines on these new fields is working out pretty nicely. I've only done one pass around the outside of the field, and so far I'd rate my performance at like a 6.5 out of 10. Although I think you get 5 just for planting the entire time. The rest are style points, and I haven't done the best job on everything. Nails. Literally the same thing that happened last time I went through here. It wouldn't have gone through a tire, but it just doesn't feel right leaving something like this. Back to what I was saying. You get the first 5, or just planting the field successfully. Oh no, not another one. Please don't have nails. No, I don't think that one had nails. The rest, though, is kind of the quality of work you're doing. I made a few small mistakes. It is a little bit of a rough transition getting out of a 40-foot planter that you've been running for 2 or 3 days, and getting into a 60-foot planter, because my mind naturally lines up with a 20-foot edge, a 20-foot from the middle. And I got another 10 foot to work with here, so this guy's yard over here, I may have planted a couple rows in. Hope he doesn't mind. Rookie operator mistake. I grabbed another gear, went up to 10 mile an hour, and it's actually performing better. It's running 98.6% singulation, kind of that 98 to 98.5. Not exactly the 99+% we're used to working on. Different seeds perform differently. Has nothing to do with the brand of seed. It's about the size and the shape of the seed itself. There are different variations of seed corn sizes and shapes, and you don't necessarily always get the same thing. 10 mile an hour though, that's cooking in this thing. Actually closer to 11. I'd be telling the truth if I told you I wish I was running something this fast every day. This is speed. I'm not sure what standard tile hole procedure is in the corn planter. Looks good to me. Said this row wasn't doing a good job planting. Pretty sure there's seed. There's not, actually. I guess my math could have been wrong. We don't have much left. Maybe 1 or 2 passes. can you come back to this field and I need a couple bags of seed? Chris is on his way with the remainder of the seed. We don't always get our numbers right, that happens. Another bag and a half of seed added. We'll let the fan run for a minute and see if we can get some more seed to that row. Could be the issue. I guess we'll give her a shot again. Problem solved, maybe? The pass of shame back to the other end so I can start fresh on a full through. I learned this trick from Marty. Let's see if I can put it into the test. We back up just a hair, offset it a little bit. Now we pull up, straddle it. Nope, I knocked it out. Okay. I got a few things to learn, everyone, if you can't tell. I'm not quite there yet as a professional corn planter. Should've just knocked it over and kept going. Oh, I better go pick that up. This is exactly why our operation needs a high-speed planter. Because by the time you account for everything that goes wrong and is miscalculated, you're just at normal speed. Just a little love tap. We did it. We finished the field. I may have made a slight clerical error that resulted in our seed numbers not being exactly right. I had this listed as a 37 acre field. My monitor tells me I planted 47 acres. And I do recall it actually being 47 acres, so yeah, this one's on me. That's why I had to add so many extra bags of seed. You live and you learn. Hopefully I remember to update that list for next year. I'm actually gonna run the seed tender to the other field, switch back into the planter, load it, all that jazz, and get back to bean planting. My short stint in the corn planter has been over. I'll await my performance review in the mail. Might be better off just taking this planter tractor to Neil Tire and parking it for the night. Seems like that field cultivator worked up a lot of debris. I'm not sure I got it all, although I don't think I ran anything over. Famous last words. We'll see you in the morning. I'm at the next field, and the planter's not here, of course. Figure this would be a perfect time for me to break out this nice red grease gun and grease the seed tender. I don't know if it's been greased this year, or last year, or maybe even the year before. Nah, I'm just kidding. We definitely grease it. Sometimes. Yeah, this thing's fancy. I know a lot of you probably run these Milwaukee guns. This selector switch, so you could kind of get an accurate number of pumps in the gun, that's nice. The gun itself, 2 power modes, also nice. Heck, this thing could blow a bearing apart with the amount of pressure it can produce. Like I said, becoming a red operation. I kept greasing a pivot on there and greasing. I was like, wow, this thing is taking a lot of grease. And I was like, well, do I even have grease in the gun? Turns out no, I didn't have grease in the gun. This thing makes a little different of a noise than the DeWalt ones that are very clearly out of grease, and maybe I just didn't notice it. I was also greasing the planter earlier, and there was one full pin on that one that was really taking a lot of grease. It was the last one I did, and it was probably out of grease in the gun. That would make sense. That was the problem. It wasn't a black hole greaser. We've got a short 80 out here, worked the same day that we worked that other field of corn stalks that we started the day on planting. I'm gonna do an interesting experiment here. We're planting Pioneer Enlist beans. They offered us 40 units of a new A-Series bean, which is gonna be their own line of bean in the Enlist lineup. That's not fully available this year. It'll be fully available next year. We got a box of it, 40 units. So I'm going to split the planter with this 3.7 bean on one side, and on another side we're going to use one of their older 3.8 Enlist beans just to kind of see side by side how they perform against each other. It's kind of unnecessary because the 3.8's part of their T-Series, which I believe are outsourced beans, someone else's genetics, just a part of that Enlist germplasm getting out into all these brands. They had to use the genetics of probably Harry Stein or someone else. These 37A, whatever the second 2 numbers are going to be, will be Pioneer's own germplasm, and they're pretty confident in them. As you can tell, the 3.7s are up front and the 3.8s are in the back. Yep, easy to tell if you've got this written on your hand. That's why it's there. 3.7s in the front, 3.8s in the back. In almost every scenario, you would not split the planter for soybeans. It's just not something you really do. You really want the same variety out on a field because every variety, even ones very close to maturity, really just have a different time frame in terms of harvestability. Now we're planting a 3.7 and a 3.8 together. They may be a couple days off in terms of maturity. Not too worried about it. By the time we get to them, they'll probably be the same moisture. I just like to see data like this. Plus, we only had 40 units and we needed 90 to plant this field. So that was the best way to do it. Whoa! I gotta remember not to open both doors at once so I can keep these separate. Looks like we're on the soybean planter, stressed Marty out. The 3.7s all fit. We're welding the 3.8s now. We had 45 units and 50, so I don't know if these are gonna fit or not. It'll be close. No worries, we got them to fit without too much of an issue. Next year we're expanding our seed tanks on the planter. We're just getting started right now. If we go over to our mapping page, you can see I got the planter split right here, two different colors. Left color, the Pioneer 38 T76Es, because they're on the left side of the planter. And on the right side is this nice indigo color, the Pioneer 37 A58Es, because they're on the right side. Do a little depth check. Oh, those are kind of far in the ground. I'm afraid if I back them out of the ground any though, these claws will present an issue for how well the seed and the row units stay in the ground. So I might just leave them where they are. And try and do some work. Lenny! He's screaming. Hey! Beautiful sunset in the evening here in the tractor. There's actually a lot of equipment running right here in this area. Four-wheel drive working around there. One's there. Two over there. Another one back that way. Definitely the garden spot, and we got a sleepy baby in the tractor on the job. Oh, well, that was a rather uneventful evening in the tractor planting soybeans, which no complaints from me, although I did make one major mistake. And that was taking the old county highway home that I thought was going to be quicker, and it was, but for every bit quicker it was rougher than taking the country route. Lesson learned there, never do that again, because I think I may have to take a visit to the chiropractor. That was not a fun ride. Evenings like this one on the planter, where everything seems to run as close to as flawlessly as possible, really spoil you, because tomorrow night when I'm running late and everything breaks down, I'm going to be pretty upset, because I'll be thinking about the night before when everything was perfect. To give you guys an idea of my mindset right now, today's Tuesday. They're calling for rain starting on mid to late Friday afternoon, and then rain through the weekend, which will probably have us out of the field for at least 5 days, if not a week. If not, it just keeps raining and it's June before we plant. Regardless though, over these next few days, we are going to be hitting it as hard as possible. We are pushing up against Mother Nature really as close as we can, just for the fact that we are working everything that is even within reason of being workable, because we want to get it in April if we can. Not that May's the end of the world, but we do prefer to have April on the calendar when we plant. That's when the highest yields usually occur. That being said, it's going to be a good couple days, barring a meteor strike or locust attack or anything. Really, that wouldn't be that surprising. Anyways, I think that's more than that farming for one video. Appreciate you all tuning in. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!